Imagine waking up every single day knowing that you're going to do something that makes your stomach churn. Not because you're reckless or chasing adrenaline, but because you've decided that growth doesn't happen in comfort. Most people don't talk about this. We're bombarded with advice about morning routines, productivity hacks, and manifesting success. But there's a discipline that sits quietly in the background, one that's rarely given a spotlight. It's the discipline of choosing discomfort on purpose. Not the kind of discomfort that breaks you, but the kind that builds you. Today, we're going to unpack this idea, why it matters, and how it can transform your life in ways you never imagined. This isn't about suffering for the sake of suffering. It's about understanding that the path to becoming your best self often feels like walking barefoot on gravel. Let's explore what this discipline looks like and why nobody seems to talk about it. First, let's clarify what I mean by intentional discomfort. It's not about punishing yourself or seeking out pain for no reason. It's about recognizing that growth requires you to step outside the cozy bubble of familiarity. Think about the last time you tried something new, a new job, a new skill, maybe even a tough conversation. Your heart probably raced, your palms got sweaty, and a little voice in your head screamed, "Why are we doing this?" That's discomfort, and most of us spend our lives avoiding it. We stick to routines, jobs, and relationships that feel safe, even when they're holding us back. The discipline of intentional discomfort is about flipping that script. It's about saying, I'm going to lean into this feeling, not run from it. It's choosing to take the cold shower, have the hard conversation, or start the project you're terrified of failing at. And the reason nobody talks about it? Because it's not sexy. It's not a quick fix or a shiny app you can download. It's gritty, it's raw, and it's deeply personal. Let's paint a picture with a story. Meet Sarah, a 32-year-old graphic designer who's been working at the same company for 8 years. She's good at her job, but she's bored. Every day feels like a rerun of the last. She dreams of starting her own freelance business. But the thought of quitting her stable job, marketing herself, and dealing with unpredictable income makes her feel like she's staring into an abyss. So she stays put. She scrolls through Instagram, watches other designers living her dream, and tells herself, maybe next year. Sound familiar? Most of us have been Sarah at some point. We have a vision for our lives, but the gap between where we are and where we want to be feels like a minefield of discomfort. What Sarah doesn't realize is that the only way to cross that gap is to embrace the very thing she's avoiding. Now let's imagine Sarah decides to practice this discipline. One day, she sits down and makes a list of everything that scares her about going freelance. The list is long. Rejection from clients, financial instability, learning new skills like accounting, even the awkwardness of networking. Instead of shoving that list in a drawer, she picks one thing, networking, and commits to doing it. She signs up for a local business meetup, even though the idea of small talk with strangers makes her want to hide under her desk. The night of the event, her stomach is in knots. She almost bails, but she remembers why she's doing this. Not just to build a business, but to become someone who doesn't let fear call the shots. She walks into that room, introduces herself to 3 people, and leaves feeling like she just climbed a mountain. That's intentional discomfort in action. It's not glamorous, but it's powerful. Why does this matter? Because discomfort is the crucible where growth happens. Think about physical exercise. When you lift weights, you're literally tearing your muscles so they can rebuild stronger. The soreness you feel afterward? That's proof you pushed your limits. The same principle applies to your mind, your emotions, and your character. When you avoid discomfort, you're essentially staying in maintenance mode. You're not getting weaker, but you're not getting stronger either. You're just existing. And over time, that existence starts to feel hollow. You might have a comfortable life, nice house, steady job, predictable routine, but there's a nagging sense that you're capable of more. That's your potential whispering to you, and it's begging you to step into the arena of discomfort. Let's take a step back and look at why this discipline is so rarely discussed. In today's world, we're obsessed with ease. Technology has made life more convenient than ever. Want food? DoorDash. Want entertainment? Netflix. Want to avoid an awkward conversation? Ghost. We've built systems that let us glide through life with minimal friction. And while that's great in some ways, it's also made us soft. We've forgotten how to sit with unease. Social media doesn't help. We're constantly fed images of people who seem to have it all together, perfect careers, perfect bodies, perfect lives. But what we don't see is the discomfort they endured to get there. The failed businesses, the rejected manuscripts, the mornings they dragged themselves out of bed to keep going. The highlight reel skips the gritty parts, so we're left thinking success is supposed to feel easy. It's not. Let's talk about the science for a moment, because this isn't just a feel-good pep talk. There's a reason discomfort is so transformative. When you step into a challenging situation, your brain lights up. Your amygdala, the part responsible for fear and stress, kicks into gear. But so does your prefrontal cortex, the part that handles problem-solving and decision-making. This is why you often feel sharper and more alive when you're facing a challenge. Your brain is learning, adapting, forging new neural pathways. This process is called neuroplasticity, and it's how we grow smarter, more resilient, and more capable. But here's the catch. Your brain only rewires itself when it's pushed. If you stay in your comfort zone, your brain has no reason to adapt. It's like leaving a muscle unused. It doesn't grow, it just stays the same. There's also something called the Yerkes-Dodson law, which says that performance improves with arousal, up to a point. Too little stress and you're bored, unmotivated. Too much and you're overwhelmed. But in that sweet spot, where you're challenged just enough to feel uncomfortable but not paralyzed, that's where peak performance happens. That's the zone of intentional discomfort. Athletes know this. They don't train by lifting weights they can easily handle. They push just beyond what's comfortable to get stronger. The same applies to every area of life. If you want to grow, you have to find that edge and lean into it. Let's bring this back to Sarah, our graphic designer. After that networking event, she feels a spark of confidence. It's not that she suddenly loves small talk, she doesn't, but she's proven to herself that she can do hard things. So she picks another item from her list, reaching out to potential clients. She drafts an email to a small business owner, offering her design services. Her hands shake as she hits send. The response comes a day later. They're interested, but want to see her portfolio first. Now she's faced with another choice. Her portfolio isn't polished. It's a collection of old projects she hasn't updated in years. The comfortable move would be to procrastinate, to tell herself she'll send it later when it's perfect. But Sarah's starting to understand this discipline. She spends a weekend revamping her portfolio, even though it means long hours and wrestling with self-doubt. She sends it off, and a week later she lands her first freelance gig. It's small, but it's a start. And more importantly, it's proof that discomfort is her ally, not her enemy. This is where the discipline of intentional discomfort starts to snowball. Each time you face a challenge and come out the other side, you build what psychologists call self-efficacy, the belief in your ability to handle tough situations. Self-efficacy is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And as it grows, you start to see yourself differently. You're no longer the person who shies away from risk or crumbles under pressure. You're someone who can take a hit and keep moving forward. This shift in identity is one of the most powerful outcomes of this discipline. It's not just about achieving goals, it's about becoming a person you respect. Let's pause for a second and address a common objection. Maybe you're thinking, this sounds exhausting. I'm already stressed out. Why would I add more discomfort to my life? It's a fair question. Life is hard enough without deliberately making it harder. But here's the thing. Not all discomfort is created equal. The discomfort of staying stuck, whether it's in a dead-end job, a toxic relationship, or a cycle of self-doubt, is far worse than the discomfort of growth. The first kind drains you, leaves you feeling small and powerless. The second kind, the intentional kind, energizes you. It's the difference between being punched in the face by life and choosing to spar in the ring. One's a victim's stance, the other's a warrior's. Another objection might be, I'm not brave enough for this, and that's okay. Courage isn't a prerequisite for this discipline, it's a byproduct. You don't need to feel fearless to start, you just need to act. Take the smallest step. If Sarah had waited until she felt ready to go to that networking event, she'd still be at her desk, dreaming. Courage grows in the doing. Every time you choose discomfort, you're casting a vote for the person you want to become. And over time, those votes add up. You don't transform overnight, but you do transform. Let's talk about how to actually practice this discipline, because it's one thing to understand the concept and another to live it. The first step is awareness. You need to know where you're avoiding discomfort in your life. Take a moment to think about it. Where are you playing it safe? Is it in your career, where you're not asking for that raise or applying for that dream job? Is it in your relationships, where you're dodging tough conversations or settling for less than you deserve? Maybe it's in your personal growth, where you're avoiding the gym, the meditation cushion, or the blank page of that book you've always wanted to write. Get honest with yourself. Write it down if you need to. This isn't about shaming yourself. It's about shining a light on the areas where you have room to grow. Once you've identified those areas, pick one thing to focus on, just one. The discipline of intentional discomfort isn't about overhauling your life in a day. It's about small, deliberate steps. Let's say you realize you've been avoiding public speaking and it's holding you back at work. Don't sign up for a TED Talk tomorrow. Start smaller. Maybe you volunteer to present at a team meeting or join a local Toastmasters club. The key is to choose something that stretches you without breaking you. It should feel challenging, but doable. That's the sweet spot we talked about earlier, the zone where growth happens. Next, prepare for resistance. Your brain is wired to keep you safe, which means it's going to throw every excuse in the book at you. You'll hear things like, "You're not ready," "You're too busy," or "What if you fail?" This is normal. The trick is to acknowledge those thoughts without letting them steer the ship. One strategy is to use the 5-second rule, popularized by Mel Robbins. When you feel that hesitation, count backward, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then act. It sounds simple, but it works because it interrupts your brain's panic mode and gives you a moment to choose courage over comfort. Another way to push through resistance is to reframe discomfort. Instead of seeing it as something to avoid, see it as a signal that you're on the right track. When your heart races or your stomach tightens, that's not a sign to stop. It's a sign that you're growing. Think of it like the burn you feel during a workout. That burn means your muscles are working, adapting, getting stronger. Discomfort is the burn of personal growth. Lean into it. Celebrate it. Over time, you'll start to crave it because you'll associate it with progress. Let's talk about failure, because it's a big part of this discipline. When you step into discomfort, you're not going to nail it every time. You might bomb that presentation, get rejected by that client, or fall flat on your face in that new venture, and that's okay. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it. Every time you fail, you learn something. You get feedback about what works and what doesn't. You build resilience, which is the ability to bounce back stronger than before. The discipline of intentional discomfort isn't about avoiding failure. It's about redefining it. It's about seeing failure as a teacher, not a tombstone. Let's go back to Sarah for a moment. After landing that first freelance gig, she's riding high. But then she pitches to a bigger client, and they turn her down. Not just a polite no, but a curt email that stings. Her first instinct is to retreat, to tell herself she's not cut out for this. But she's been practicing this discipline long enough to know that discomfort is part of the deal. So she takes a deep breath, asks for feedback, and uses it to refine her approach. A month later, she lands a project twice the size of her first. That rejection didn't define her, it refined her. That's the power of this discipline. It turns setbacks into stepping stones. Now let's zoom out and talk about the bigger picture. Why does this discipline matter in the grand scheme of things? Because the world is changing faster than ever, and comfort is a luxury we can't always afford. Technology, politics, the economy, everything's in flux. The skills and mindsets that got you through yesterday might not be enough for tomorrow. If you're not willing to step into discomfort, you risk being left behind. Not in a dramatic, apocalyptic way, but in a quiet, insidious way. You wake up one day and realize you're stuck. Not because life was unfair, but because you didn't adapt. The discipline of intentional discomfort is your insurance policy against that. It keeps you agile, resilient, ready for whatever comes next. There's also a deeper, almost spiritual layer to this. When you embrace discomfort, you start to understand yourself in a new way. You discover what you're made of. You peel back the layers of fear, doubt, and insecurity, and find something solid underneath. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more of who you already are. There's a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can handle hard things. It's not loud or flashy, but it's unshakable. And in a world that's constantly trying to sell you quick fixes and instant gratification, that kind of confidence is rare. Let's talk about some real-world examples to drive this home. Think about historical figures who embodied this discipline. Take Abraham Lincoln. Before he became one of America's greatest presidents, he faced a string of failures. Lost elections, failed businesses, personal tragedies. Each one was a moment of discomfort, a chance to quit. But he kept going, not because he was fearless, but because he learned to see discomfort as a teacher. Or look at modern examples like J.K. Rowling. Before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon, she was a single mother living on welfare, rejected by publisher after publisher. She didn't write her books in a cozy bubble of inspiration. She wrote them in the crucible of discomfort. These stories aren't just inspiring. They're proof that this discipline works. You don't have to be a historical figure to practice this, though. Everyday people do it all the time. Think about the single parent who goes back to school while working 2 jobs. Or the recovering addict who faces their triggers every day to stay sober. Or the shy kid who auditions for the school play despite their stage fright. These aren't the stories that make headlines, but they're the ones that shape the world. They're the stories of people who chose discomfort over complacency, and they're proof that you can do it too. Let's get practical again, because I don't want to leave you with just inspiration. I want you to walk away from this video with a plan. So here's a simple framework to start practicing the discipline of intentional discomfort. Step 1. Identify your growth area. Like we talked about earlier, figure out where you're playing it safe. Be specific. Instead of saying, I want to be more confident, say, I want to speak up in meetings without second-guessing myself. Step 2. Choose one small action. It doesn't have to be huge. Just something that pushes you slightly out of your comfort zone. Maybe it's raising your hand in a meeting or sending that email you've been avoiding. Step 3. Commit to doing it within the next 48 hours. The longer you wait, the more your brain will talk you out of it. Step 4. Reflect. After you do it, take 5 minutes to write down how it felt, what you learned, and what you'll do next. This reflection is key because it helps you see discomfort as a tool, not a threat. Here's an example to make it concrete. Let's say you've identified that you're avoiding exercise because you feel self-conscious at the gym. Your small action could be signing up for a beginner's yoga class or going for a 10-minute walk. Commit to doing it tomorrow morning. Afterward, write down how it went. Maybe you felt awkward at first but proud by the end. Maybe you realized the gym isn't as intimidating as you thought. Whatever it is, that reflection helps you build momentum. And then you do it again. Pick another action, maybe a bit harder this time. Over weeks and months, those small steps add up to massive change. One thing to keep in mind, this discipline isn't a one-and-done deal. It's a way of life. The more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. You start to see opportunities for growth everywhere. That tough feedback from your boss? It's not an attack, it's a chance to improve. That scary opportunity to lead a project, it's not a risk, it's a classroom. You start to approach life with a kind of fearless curiosity because you know that discomfort is where the magic happens. Let's address one more thing before we wrap up, the role of balance. Practicing intentional discomfort doesn't mean you should live in a constant state of stress. That's not growth, that's burnout. You need rest, joy, and moments of ease to recharge. Think of it like interval training. You push hard for a sprint, then you recover, then you push again. The discipline is about knowing when to lean into discomfort and when to step back. Listen to your body, your mind, your heart. If you're constantly overwhelmed, you're not practicing this discipline. You're just surviving. The goal is to grow, not to grind yourself into dust. As we come to the end of this, I want to leave you with a challenge. Right now, as you're watching this, think of one thing you've been avoiding because it feels uncomfortable. It could be a conversation, a decision, a step toward a goal. Write it down. And then within the next 24 hours, take one small action toward it. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be big. Just take the step. And when you do, notice how it feels. Notice the mix of fear and pride, the way your heart beats a little faster. That's the feeling of growth. That's the discipline nobody talks about, and it's the key to unlocking a life bigger than you ever imagined. Thank you all.